It's English time! Good day, learners! It's nice to have you all. I hope you are all doing well. Today is another learning experience that you may apply in real life as you venture in the world of English. With that, welcome to English 7 Q1 Week 6. This is Sir Ryan Ligsay, but you can call me Sir Rai, and I am your friendly virtual English teacher. But before we formally start, let me remind you to get ready with your pen, your learning activity sheets, and a glass or a bottle of water to keep you hydrated as we go along with our discussion today. Alright, let's get started! For today, we will be discussing phrases, clauses, and sentences. But first, we should be familiar with the learning competency that we are going to target with this lesson. Our learning competency is use phrases, clauses, and sentences appropriately and meaningfully. And to achieve this learning competency, you students are expected to identify the different types of phrases, clauses, and sentences. Differentiate phrases, clauses, and sentences. And use phrases, clauses, and sentences in different contexts at the end of this lesson. Dear learners, it is important to know the importance of communication in our daily lives because every day we communicate with others. But as we exchange spoken and written thoughts with others, most of the time we don't anymore give attention to the structure of the ideas that we utter and write. So for this lesson, we are going to solve your curiosity about phrases, clauses, and sentences as we unravel the specific things you need to know about these big terms. Let's start with phrases. A phrase is a group of related words without both a subject and a verb. For example, a happy life. In this example of a phrase, have you seen both a subject and a verb? Definitely not. There are different types of phrases in the English language that we need to know. These are noun phrase, verb phrase, prepositional phrase, adverb phrase, and adjective phrase. Noun phrase. A noun phrase consists of a noun and other related words, usually modifiers and/or determiners, which modify a noun in a sentence. When we say modifiers, these are usually the adjectives or words that modify a certain noun. And when we say determiners, these are usually the articles a, an, or the that determine a noun is coming. For example, my brother decided to buy a new smartphone for his online class. The underlined phrase is a noun phrase because it has the determiner a, the modifier new, and the noun smartphone. Another example, to edit her presentation, Gina used the laptop. The underlined phrase is a noun phrase because it has the determiner the and the noun laptop. Verb phrase. A verb phrase has a main verb and its auxiliary or helping verb in a sentence. The examples of helping verbs are am, is, are, be, has, have, do, does, may, might, must, can, shall, and will. For example, I am answering my learning activity sheets now. The underlined phrase is a verb phrase. Why? Because it has the auxiliary or helping verb am and the main verb answering. Another example, I will donate health kits for our Brigada Eskwela. The underlined phrase is a verb phrase because it has the helping verb will and the main verb donate. Prepositional phrase. A prepositional phrase comprises a preposition and an object of the preposition. Try considering this formula: preposition plus object of the preposition. For example, the students are accomplishing their activities at home. The underlined phrase is a prepositional phrase because it has the preposition at and the object of the preposition home. Another example, the classes will start on Monday. The underlined preposition is a prepositional phrase because it has the preposition on and the object of the preposition Monday. Adverb phrase. An adverb phrase, like an adverb, modifies verbs, adjectives, adverbs, and answers the same range of questions as adverbs. For the question how, here is the example. The student reads the story very loudly. The underlined phrase modifies the verb reads, and it answers the question, how is the story read? For the question when, here is the example. They will leave the online class after the discussion. The underlined phrase modifies the verb will leave, and it answers the question, when will they leave the online class? For the question where, here is the example. You can put your laptop on the table. The underlined phrase modifies the verb put, and it answers the question, where can you put your laptop? And for the question why, here is the example. Because of the pandemic, the Department of Education uses distance learning. The underlined phrase modifies the word uses, and it answers the question, why does the Department of Education use distance learning? Adjective phrase. An adjective phrase, like an adjective, modifies nouns or pronouns. It tells or answers the question, which or what kind. For example, I am making a project about water conservation. The underlined phrase modifies the noun project, and it answers the question, what kind of project? Another example, she is from Tarlac. The underlined phrase modifies the pronoun she. Take note. Adverb phrase and adjective phrase are kinds of prepositional phrase. Both of them may overlap with prepositional phrase. Just look for their functions to identify them well. Next, we have clauses. A clause is a group of words with at least a subject and a verb or a predicate. For example, because she wants to study. Does the example have a subject? Yes. Does it have a predicate? Yes. You have to know that clauses can be independent and dependent. An independent clause or main clause has a subject and a verb, and it can stand by itself, while a dependent clause or subordinate clause typically has a subject and a verb also, but it cannot stand by itself because it starts with a subordinate word or a subordinator. For example, Jenny got a perfect score in the exam because she had studied well. In this example, Jenny got a perfect score in the exam is the independent clause, and because she had studied well is a dependent clause. If we are going to remove the dependent clause, the independent clause still can stand by itself, for it has a complete thought. But when we remove the independent clause, the dependent clause cannot stand by itself because it lacks a complete thought without the independent clause. Observe the other examples. My mother went to the kitchen after she had bought vegetables in the market. My mother went to the kitchen is the independent clause. After she had bought vegetables in the market is the dependent clause, which starts with the subordinator after. Another example, though he was quite sick, John still finished his activities on time. John still finished his activities on time is the independent clause, and though he was still sick or he was quite sick is the dependent clause which starts with the subordinator, though. Now, let's talk about sentences. A sentence is a group of words that expresses a complete thought. It basically has at least a subject and a predicate. For example, my sister bakes a cake for my birthday. Does it have a subject and a predicate? Yes, it does. Does it have a complete thought? Yes, of course. There are 4 types of sentences according to structure: simple sentence, compound sentence, complex sentence, and compound complex sentence. Simple sentence. A simple sentence consists of one independent clause. For example, my cousin is writing a poem. The underlined clause is an independent clause. Another example, the teachers use video lessons to teach the students. The underlined clause is also an independent clause. Compound sentence. A compound sentence has 2 or more independent clauses joined by coordinating conjunction or a semicolon. Each of these clauses could form a sentence alone. There are 7 coordinating conjunctions that you have to know. We have for, and, nor, but, or, yet, or so, or the acronym fanboys. For example, my cousin is writing a poem and his sister is singing a song. The 2 underlined clauses are independent clauses which are joined by the conjunction and. Another example, the teachers use video lessons so they can still teach the students. The 2 underlined clauses are independent clauses which are joined by the conjunction so. Complex sentence. A complex sentence consists of an independent clause plus a dependent clause. It uses subordinating conjunctions or relative pronouns. Now here's the additional information. A subordinating conjunction or subordinator signals a dependent clause. Here are the examples of subordinating conjunction: after, although, as, because, before, how, if, once, since, then, that, though, till, until, when, where, whether, while. And here are the 5 basic relative pronouns that you can use: that, which, who, whom, and whose. Now here are the examples of a complex sentence. My cousin is writing a poem, though he is a bit tired. The underlined clause is independent, while the encircled clause is dependent, which is signaled by the subordinator, though. Another example: the teachers use video lessons because there are no face-to-face classes. The underlined clause is independent, while the encircled clause is dependent, which is signaled by the subordinator, because. Compound complex sentence. A compound complex sentence consists of at least 2 independent clauses and 1 or more dependent clauses. For example, though he is a bit tired, my cousin is writing a poem, for he plans to submit it by tomorrow. The 2 underlined clauses are independent clauses, while the encircled clause is a dependent clause, which is signaled by the subordinator, though. There are also 4 types of sentences according to purpose: declarative sentence, interrogative sentence, imperative sentence, and exclamative sentence. Declarative sentence. Declarative sentences make a statement. They tell us something and they give us information. They normally end with a period. For example, distance learning is a form of education which includes physical separation of teachers and students during instruction. Does it give information? Does it end with a period? Yes, it does. Interrogative sentence. Interrogative sentences ask questions. Since they ask us something, they want information. Then, they always end with a question mark. For example, when did you go to church? Does it ask a question? Does it end with a question mark? Yes, it does. Imperative sentence. Imperative sentences give a command. They tell us to do an action, and they end with a period or an exclamation point or mark. For example, go to your room. Does it tell to do an action? Does it end with a period? Yes, it does. Exclamative sentence. Exclamative sentences express a strong emotion, an exclamation, and they always end with an exclamation mark or point. For example, how beautiful her dress was! Does it express a strong emotion? Does it end with an exclamation point? Yes, it does. There you have it! We are now done with the discussion. But before we proceed, do you have any questions? How do you find the lesson so far? In the event there are unclear ideas, you may ask your teacher or your English teacher by sending your queries via Facebook Messenger or SMS. If everything is good now, let's do the activities! Now, let us see if you understood the things that we have talked about today. In your learning activity sheets, you have 5 activities that you need or you must accomplish for this week. Now we are going to accomplish 3 of those activities, and the remaining 2 will serve as your written and performance tasks. so make sure to accomplish them at the end of this video lesson and submit them to your English teacher soon. But before answering, please bear in mind the general directions that you have to follow. Read carefully the directions indicated in each of the following activities, then provide what is needed or asked in each of them. And just a quick note, at the end of some of the activities, I will be flashing the correct answers for you to check whether you follow or not. For Activity A that can be found on page 3 of your learning activity sheets, you have to read each sentence carefully. Identify whether the underlined phrase is a noun phrase, a verb phrase, an adverb phrase, or an adjective phrase. Write your answers on the space provided before each number on your learning activity sheets. For example, John bought a brand new car. The underlined phrase here is a noun phrase. For this activity, you will be given 50 seconds to answer the items, 25 seconds for the first 5 items, and another 25 seconds for the last 5 items. Are you ready? Let's go! For the first part of Activity A, timer starts now. For the second part of Activity A, timer starts now. That's awesome! You are now done with Activity A. To see if you have answered the items correctly, let's check your answers. Here are the correct answers. Number 1, adverb phrase. Number 2, adjective phrase. Number 3, verb phrase. Number 4, verb phrase. Number 5, noun phrase. Number 6, adverb phrase. Number 7, adjective phrase. Number 8, noun phrase. Number 9, adverb phrase. And number 10, verb phrase. Now, let's go to Activity B, which can be found on page 4 of your learning activity sheets. In Activity B, read the sentences carefully, underline the independent clause once, and underline the dependent clause twice in each sentence. For example, when the man went to the market, his daughter always asked him to buy her some candies. Here, when the man went to the market is a dependent clause, and his daughter always asked him to buy her some candies is the independent clause. For this activity, you will be given 50 seconds to answer all the items, 25 seconds for the first 5 items, and another 25 seconds for the last 5 items. Are you ready? Then, let's begin! For the first part of Activity B, timer starts now. For the second part of Activity B, timer starts now. You did a wonderful job! You're finally done with Activity B. Now let's check if you did it correctly. Look at your screens because these are the answers for Activity B. It's time for us to do Activity C. Just a reminder, Activity C is divided into two parts. So at this moment, let's do the first part, which is found on page 4 to 5 of your learning activity sheets. Analyze the sentences. Identify their types according to structure by checking the corresponding box in the table. For example, my sister often eats ice cream and she loves it. This is a compound sentence. For this activity, you will be given 25 seconds to answer all the items. Are you ready? Let's give it a try! For the first part of Activity C, timer starts now. What a nice job! Now let's see if you have answered it correctly. Number 1 is compound sentence. Number 2 is a complex sentence. Number 3 is a simple sentence. Number 4 is a compound complex sentence. And number 5 is a complex sentence. Now, for the second part of Activity C that is on pages 4 and 5 of your learning activity sheets, study the words. Write a sentence out of the words based on their corresponding type. Be sure to use proper punctuations in your sentences. Write your answers on the space provided in your LAS. For example, vaccine declarative. You may write, there is already an available vaccine to be used in the Philippines. For this activity, you will be given another 25 seconds to accomplish it. I bet you're ready, so let's begin! Your timer starts now. Very good! You are now done with Activity C, but let's see if your answers are correct. Here are the possible answers. For number 1, even though Filipinos experience pandemic, they still remain strong. For number 2, why does corruption exist in the Philippines? Number 3, what a strong earthquake that hit us. Number 4, give your donations to all those affected by the pandemic. For number 5, are you done answering your module? Take note, the answers here may vary. Now, let me just explain to you the next activities you must accomplish at the end of this video lesson. Please stay focused so you would know what you're going to do. For Activity D, that can be found on page 5 of your learning activity sheets, look at the dialog boxes. Complete the conversation between the two people in each item. Use phrases, clauses, and sentences properly in completing the conversations. Write your answers in the empty dialog boxes. See the example below. For Activity E that can be found on page 6 of your learning activity sheets, you are going to answer the question below by writing a paragraph with at least 5 sentences. Use phrases, clauses, and sentences meaningfully and appropriately as you express your thoughts. Write your answer on the space provided in your LAS. Here's the question. As a student, how can you contribute to avoid the increasing number of COVID cases in your country? Remember to check or review the scoring rubric in your LAS for the evaluation of your work. That's all for our activities. But wait, there's more. Before we end, you have to reflect on the things you have learned for today's lesson. With that, please answer the reflection part that can be found on page 6 of your learning activity sheets after this video lesson. You have to answer the specific questions. What have you learned? What are the things you need to apply in real life? And what are the learnings you want to share with others? Did you get it? Very good! With all the things you have done for today, I want to say congratulations for a job well done! You have just proven that it is always possible to have fun and learn English at the same time with a happy and passionate heart. With that, thank you for your time and participation for today, and I hope you will apply whatever you have learned in real life. If you have further questions, you may once again ask your English teacher regarding this lesson via text message or social networking sites, or you may also consider the references that are flashed on your screens right now. With that, let me just remind everyone to spread love and positivity as we learn everywhere and every day. Once again, this is Sir Ryan Ligsay, but you can call me Sir Rai. Thank you and have a wonderful day.